Let's go at it then. Malin and Francisca, I'm going to hand over to you.
Thank you, Deborah, and welcome from both of us as well. To everyone who doesn't know us from any other occasion, I'm Francisca, this is Malin.
Hello.
And we decided that we'd quickly walk you through the two different legal grounds that restitution naturalizations happen within, so that you have that legal framework. And then we're going through the documentation that is needed for the applications to be processed. And we're going to explain how to approach the whole process and what to do to successfully submit an application. So I'd like to walk you through the first and oldest regulation of restitution naturalization, which was introduced back in 1949. So it's been there for a long while. And it addresses all former German citizens that had their citizenship taken away from between the 30th of January 33 and the 8th of May 55. 45, sorry. 55 is the other regulations. So it addresses all these people who had to leave Germany and their citizenship was taken away from them by the Nazis due to racial, religious, other grounds, political grounds, and all their descendants. There's one thing that always confuses people, I think, about this regulation. If someone who is entitled to this type of naturalization moves to Germany, takes residence, they automatically acquire German citizenship. So these people, some of them don't really know at the moment, at the time they go to Germany, but they acquire German citizenship automatically. That is a different type of application later on, but let's take it, they can become German citizens and all their descendants can too. There's no limit to like 5 generations or anything. It goes on, except that if someone acquires citizenship and then passes it on to their children, those children obviously don't have to apply, because if they're born to German parents, they will automatically gain citizenship. Over to you.
Yes. As Francisca just explained, that was Article 116, so the older law, and this law leaves gaps. There were people that were not included in this because it only included Germans that were actively deprived of their citizenship by the Nazis. So in August 2021, a new law came into force, which is known as Section 15 of the Nationality Act. And that gives a lot more options for other constellations where it was maybe not a German citizen or it wasn't actively deprived. There is four options in this law under which you may fall, and I will walk you through them. Because they sound complicated to read, but I will give examples, so it's hopefully clear. So the first option in Section 15 is for persons who gave up or lost their citizenship before 1955, for example, by acquiring a foreign citizenship or marrying a foreigner. This would, for example, be a German woman that left Germany in the 1930s due to Nazi persecution, and then in 1939 married an Englishman. So she would have lost her German citizenship automatically when marrying this Englishman, because that was the law at the time. A German woman marrying a foreigner loses her German citizenship. As she was not actively deprived of her citizenship by the Nazis, she was not covered under the old law because she wasn't actively deprived. But why did she end up in England marrying this Englishman? Because of the Nazi persecution. So under the new law, this, for example, would also be covered. Or a German man leaving Germany, let's say to the USA, and becoming a US citizen before the Nazis deprived all Jews of abroad of German citizenship in 1941. So anyone that acquired another citizenship before or without being deprived actively by the Nazis would be covered under this. The second option is for persons who were excluded from becoming Germans, either through marriage or the collective naturalization of ethnic Germans. Sounds very complicated again, but for example, this will be for everyone from the Sudetenland or Bohemia and Moravia. They had these ethnic Germans, the Volksdeutsche, and in 1938, when Germany annexed these areas, all Volksdeutsche, all ethnic Germans in these areas were made German citizens. Who was excluded? The Jewish population. So they never became German because of the Nazi persecution. So under this legislation, these people who never became German because of the persecution can now also apply for citizenship. I think that was a frequently asked question. So yes, Sudetenland, Böhmen, and Moravia, if your ancestor was an ethnic German, you are now entitled to citizenship. And then this also includes any other people who were not naturalized, although they applied just because of their religion or also their political views. And the last option is for people who lived in Germany before 1933 and gave up their residence in Germany after January 1933, so after the Nazis came into power. An example for this would be Polish citizens. That is quite common, mostly in Berlin. Polish citizens living in Berlin before 1933 and then leaving at some point after 1933 because of the persecution, but they have never actually been German. If you can prove that they were residents in Germany before 1933 and then left afterwards, you would also be entitled to German citizenship. So yeah, these are the two grounds. I hope that was clear. If we haven't covered everything, please feel free to get in touch and tell us your specific circumstances, and we'll be happy to advise.
And for everyone who sends in an application, we will obviously go through the paperwork and see, and if we see that it should maybe be the other application, we will then reach out to the people and help them to complete the other application form. So don't worry if you're confused by the two different laws and don't know which you and your family fall under, we can help you with that. Additionally to knowing what to apply for, you are very interested in what to submit and what documents are needed to prove that you're entitled to German citizenship through these two routes. So I'll be covering the newer, let's put it that way, documentation, and Malin will then walk you through the historic documents that might be needed. For every application, we need the proof of descendants from that first initial reference person. So let's say it was your grandparents, your grandmother who had to leave Germany and then was deprived of her German citizenship, and you are now applying. So you would need to prove how you are related to her through birth certificates that state both parents, so the unabridged version for the British birth certificates, marriage certificates, and if there is anything, recognition of paternity, adoption decrees, anything that proves your relation to that reference person. Then if you or anyone in the line has changed their names, we would need evidence of the name changes if available. We would need a copy of your current passport to see that you are you. And then we would need a copy of the naturalization certificate if that reference person, so in this case, your grandmother, was naturalized in the UK or maybe somewhere else, we would also need that. If you don't have any of that, Malin will walk you through how to gather information. And let's put it that way, a lot of documentation is available, and a lot of documentation that you might not find at your house can be obtained quite easily. I know it's a process that you have to go through, but hopefully it helps to have a list to tick things off. One thing on British documents, they don't need to be translated. They can be handed in just as they are, as English, in English. And the British documents also don't need an apostille. So that leaves two things out to worry about. Other people, any other languages that are not English or German, and probably maybe French, will need a translation. I know a lot of countries have international documents that offer different languages as translation helps. So that would be an option sometimes. For other countries as well, some countries will require an apostille. So if you have documents from other countries that you need to submit, then you can just reach out to us and we will help you through what to do to get those documents in line.
Yeah. So the more difficult documents to obtain, if you don't have them anymore, might be the historic documents. So what you need to prove is that your ancestor was either German back in the day, was from Germany, and of course the reason of persecution. So you don't need to prove individual persecution. Jewish faith, proving that somebody was Jewish at the time is enough reason of persecution. So what might that be? For Jewish faith, there can be a lot of things that can go from birth certificates, marriage certificates, because the old German records often state the religion, or if somebody got married in a synagogue or other synagogue registration documents. A lot of the Jewish communities in Germany still have old documents in their archives. There might be records from Hebrew schools. There might be pictures. I've seen pictures of gravestones from a Jewish cemetery in Germany, which was still there. So there is lots of options. It doesn't have to necessarily be an official document that says that person was Jewish. It can be circumstantial, like I said, like pictures from a cemetery, or that somebody visited a Hebrew school, things like that. How do you prove former citizenship? That can be a little bit more complicated. There is no central record of German citizens, not today and not back then. So we cannot look up who is German, who was German. It's simply there is no central record of this, no central register. So if you don't, there might be old passports, then there might be, if somebody came over with a ship, there might be ship records that state that somebody was German. If you have their British certificate of naturalization, which you can get from the National Archives in Kew, that states the former citizenship. So that might state German or Polish or Czech, which will also help. Then there is something in Germany called the Melderegister, which is a sort of residence register. Every town, even still today, when you go live somewhere in Germany, you have to register with the city. And they have this register of, and when you leave, you have to deregister. And it was the same back in the day. And that might also state religion and and the citizenship at the time that somebody lives there. These archives are mostly still there. Some got destroyed, but most are still there. Also the ones from the former so-called Ostgebiete, so the Eastern territories, they are all in the Landesarchiv, the state archives in Berlin. So they are also still there. It is possible to get all these records. If you're not sure, because maybe, of course, you don't speak German, and the websites are sometimes not translated to English, we can help you with the links. A lot of things can be ordered online today, but it is possible to get all the old birth certificates, marriage certificates, residence registers, as long as you know where the person used to live and maybe the time, some dates, that can help. Also, you might have some documents from Wiedergutmachung, so that the person received compensation for the persecution they suffered, or German pension. These documents can also help. Again, there is no central register of that, so we cannot look it up. But if you still have some, and that they have a file number on it, then the BVA, so this is the authority in Germany that processes all the applications, they can then, with file numbers, they can then look it up. But we need some clues where to look, basically, because no central register in Germany. It's data protection or something, I think. Yeah, that for the historic documents. And now Franziska is going to explain generally how it works. And then I see that lots of people are posting questions in the comments. So I think Franziska will talk, and then we'll just go through them and see if there's anything that's not answered and that we can answer in this talk. Some might be better to get in touch with us individually afterwards, but maybe there's something that we can still answer. But we'll finish first, and maybe we already wrap it up.
One question that I've seen pop up in the chat more than once is, do we need originals? So once you've gathered all the information and filled in the form, you can come to the embassy, book an appointment, and get copies of all your original documents that, of course, you might want to keep, will not want to submit. Get copies certified at the embassy for free, of no charge for that, and then hand in your applications. We will not keep the originals. We will give them back directly at the appointment. We will just keep the certified copies and pass them on to the BVA in Germany, which then will process the applications. So once you have come to the embassy, gotten your copy certified, handed in your application form at the same time, you will then, in a couple of days, maybe even the same day, depends on how many applications come in, get a confirmation email from us, one of us, stating your file number at the embassy. That is not the file number at the BVA, that's a different one. But you will get a file number from us, so that if you have to get in touch with us again, we will be able to match your new email or new documents that you have submitted with the ones that we already got. And we will then pass the whole application package, so the certified copies and the application form, onto the BVA, which will then process them. Unfortunately, the processing times are quite long because there's a lot of applications. It's not only you here in the UK applying and sending applications over to the BVA, but the BVA is the central authority in Germany for applications from all around the world. So as you might imagine, there is quite a few people applying, and unfortunately the numbers are not going down. So the processing times are not going down either. There isn't much we or you can do to speed it up, unfortunately, unless you fall into certain categories, be it like you are very old already when you apply.
So that's over 80.
So that's over 80, then your application will be processed quicker. Or if you have any illnesses that require you to go through the process quicker. Unfortunately, that is very limited, and we are not the people deciding if the application can be speeded up or not. So once you hand in your application and we send it off to the BVA, it isn't really in our hands to get it quicker. Rest assured that every application that comes in through us and then is passed on to the BVA stays in our records, and we will follow up with applications that for some reason or another take longer than others. So if we see an application isn't processing as the others, then we will, poke the BVA and ask why it's taken longer. For the application form and handing it in, you can come to the embassy, get your copy certified, and hand it in the application at the same time, as I said. You can also go to one of our honorary consuls around the country. I think we have 17. It's quite a few. And they can also get your documents copy certified and then pass it on to us. You can send it to us via post. And if you want to do that, you can go through our honorary consul. They certify the copies. Then you take everything to the post office and post it to us. Once it reaches us, we will again send a confirmation email. And then everything goes the same way. If you want to, you can also use a regular notary public in the UK, but of course that's not going to be free of charge because that's not in our hands. Both the embassy and the honorary consuls will do the copy certification free of charge, and there's no other fee for the application itself. Maybe sometimes the BVA needs additional information when processing the application. Maybe there's something additional that you will be asked to submit. It will either come directly from the BVA to you, or it comes through us and we will then forward it to you. If there's any questions, we're here for that. And once everything is processed and the BVA has finished your application and printed the naturalization certificate, it's going to be sent to us. And once it reaches us, we will reach out to you and then offer you an appointment for your naturalization. After that, you can then apply for a passport. And then everything is finished and done. One thing I forgot to mention earlier, if someone in your family has already gone through the process, has already submitted all the historic documents, it will be much easier for the other family members to apply. Unfortunately, it's still going to take the same amount of time, but it's not going to take the same amount of preparation time, hopefully, on your side. Because then you will only need to send in documents to prove your relationship with that person that already applied before. So let's say you have already gone through the process and now your children want to do the same. They can link their application to yours by submitting their own birth certificates and marriage certificates if they are married. And then those applications can be linked. You don't have to wait for one generation to go through the process for the other next generation to apply. You don't even have to apply in all generations. So maybe you personally don't want to apply, but your children and their children want to. They can do that at the same time. They don't need to gather all information for the whole family. Of course, if you want to submit as a whole family, that's totally fine and that's great. But if someone is slower gathering everything or wants to take a moment to think about it, that's totally fine as well. There is no time limit. So both regulations that we've talked about are not limited to a certain time frame. So if you don't want to apply now, but in 5 years, you can do that. It does not affect your British citizenship.
Or any other that you may have if you're also Israeli, South African, whatever. It all stays as it is.
Yeah, it is just an additional one that you would then have. Have I forgotten anything?
Yeah, just you've said it, but just to say again, to be clear, this is citizenship. This is not a passport. Once you are, because people sometimes send in their photos with their applications or anything. That is later. Once you are a German citizen, you can then afterwards get the passport. I see a lot of questions about the generations again. So if somebody has, we have somebody, Elaine, saying, my mom was given her naturalization certificate in 93, but the certificate states naturalization does not apply to the children. That is correct. That means your mom became German, but it did not automatically apply to her children, extend to her children. So if your mother does it, you're not German. You need to apply in your own right. You apply under the same route as your mom, which would probably Article 116, but you have to do the application again. You could also, as Franziska said, skip a generation. As somebody else asked about their great-grandparents who didn't do it, if they can still do it. Yes, you can. You don't need all generations in between to do it. If you have children born after you became German, they are automatically German by birth. It passes on, but only born after you became German, not after so only after the naturalization, yes. Not after the application.
It is for former German citizens or all the other groups that Malin talked about, and their descendants. So your spouses, your partners are unfortunately not able to apply under this route, but you yourself and your children will.
And then we have Mark asking about minors. So your mother left Germany age 4, that's no problem, as long as you have the documents related to your mother, if you don't have anything about your grandparents. So if you have the documents proving that your mother, like a German birth certificate, or that she lived in Germany, that she was German, that's fine. If she was minor or an adult, it doesn't matter. I'll just go through anything else. If I apply for German citizenship, can my children and their children benefit as well? As we said, it does not automatically extend for them just because you do it. They have to do it as well. They can do it with you, without you, doesn't matter. But each person that wants German citizenship has to do it themselves. It does not automatically go down. Answer this. If your mother became British in 1947, is it still possible? Yes.
Yes.
Copies of bar mitzvah and marriage certificates from Germany acceptable? Yes. Totally. If the place of birth and living is now Poland, yes. Same goes for anything that might now be the Czech Republic, if it was German territories at the time, or Königsberg, which is now Russia. Absolutely fine. And yes, we will be supplying our contact details. You can use the consulate in Edinburgh, or if you live in Scotland, you even have to use the consulate in Edinburgh. If you live in Birmingham, there is an honorary consul in Birmingham, which you can use. Contact details are on our website. And as Franziska said, you can also always use a British notary public if anything else is too far from you, but they would charge you a fee. It's called the BVA, which means Bundesverwaltungsamt, which is a great German word meaning Federal Office of Administration. So they do all sorts of citizenship applications from all over the world, not just for the victims of Nazi persecution and their descendants, but anything else that comes in citizenship matters from all over the world.
Then Tom asked about the criminal record. So for the Article 116 applications, there's no need for that. But for the 15 applications, there is. Both DBS and ACRO here in the UK are accepted. So you can get that certificates from them.
You can get those online on the DBS website or ACRO website.
We will not be talking about the 14 citizenship applications because that is now a very different group.
Yeah, if you have any individual questions, please get in touch with us. It might be too much.
I have just posted our contact details, so don't worry if that is just our central citizenship email address, because it's going to be both of us covering it, and you will then get an individual reply. We've just used that email address in case one of us is not in the office, and we just don't want to miss anything.
Yeah, you'll get both of us.
Then we have linked you the documentation on our website and on the BVA's website. So
you'll find all the forms.
You can download the application forms. There should be forms in English.
The 116 is in English. The 15 is in German, but at the end there is a translation aid. You have to scroll through the end. For the 15, you have to fill in the German form, but you can fill it in English. And the 16, you can complete it in English.
And if you don't find the document, the application forms, just email us. We'll be sending them. And if you have any additional questions that might be too complicated to ask today and to go through in this call, just email us. We will be answering individually, and any questions that you might think of later, same applies.
All right. Deborah, I think
great.
That's us.
Thank you so much for for responding to all the questions in chat. They're coming fast and furious. But I think that's yes, Tanya, I will. The email addresses will be you can email me if you want them. I'm not going to send them to everyone because I don't know who everyone is, but you can email me for the email address and the information. I just wanted to add that one of the events or activities that we are also thinking of providing for our members, and particularly for those who are applying for or have applied for German citizenship, are lessons in German. So rather learning to speak German and understand it. So there'll be more information about that in the newsletters as well. For the person who just asked, they did put the email address up, and she's put it up again. Thank you, Francesca. Very good. So let's wrap that up. The recording, if you want to watch it all over again, will be available at some point to AJR members. So again, you can email me for that information. It's going to take me a few days to put all these recordings up because there's 5 different sessions going on. We've got Austria this afternoon, if anybody else is interested in that as well. And I just want to address one last thing, which I know a lot of people have also asked about, which is the sort of expected time that it takes to get your citizenship approved.
Yeah, so yeah, Francesca framed it very diplomatically as very long. So we're talking 2 to 3 years after a completed application is sent off.
Right, 2 to 3 years. Okay. Yeah. And that is because of
that's
the
backlog
volume.
Of applications they have, I think at the moment around 30,000 applications in the queue, and what you are basically added at the end of the queue, and they get treated chronologically, unless, like we said, we are over 80, then they get expedited.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much. Thank you everyone for attending. Thank you for sharing your knowledge, and have a great day.
Thank you so much, Deborah, for organizing.
Okay. Pleasure. Bye-bye, everyone.